Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, there's shock and sadness in South Africa as the number of lives lost to extreme flooding in Eastern Cape rises to at least 49. Amongst the devastation, a school bus full of kids that was swept away by raging waters, only to be later found empty. Also, African startups and communities worry that on top of slashes to aid and tariffs, taxes on remittances planned for Trump's big, beautiful bill could further snarl up African financial flows. We hear from our correspondent in Senegal. And England licks its wounds after a mauling from the Lions of Teranga. There's jubilation and confidence across the continent after Senegal's national team becomes the first African squad to beast England. But first, at least 49 people have died in devastating floods in Eastern Cape province in South Africa. Search and rescue operations are still battling with the fallout from the heavy rains and gale-force winds that have battered the area since early Tuesday. Many of the victims and those missing are students whose school bus was swept away in the disaster, only to be found empty on Wednesday. Tom Canetti with more.
Dozens were added to the death toll on Wednesday afternoon as helicopters continued their search for missing locals in Mthatha and Solo. Rescuers are concentrating on trying to find kids who were in a minibus transporting them to school when that vehicle was swept away by floodwaters. Several of those children have been found, but several are still missing. One distraught mother told local media on Wednesday afternoon that they had found the body of her daughter, her young daughter, hanging from a tree, and that despite such a horrible situation for her, that she was relieved that the body had at least been found. We've seen rescuers carrying body bags covered in mud, struggling to get those body bags out into those evacuation zones. Cars completely submerged underwater, houses entirely destroyed with their roofs completely ripped off and separated from their walls. And locals here will be having dark flashbacks to a 2022 flood that killed over 400 people and left thousands homeless. President Cyril Ramaphosa has offered his condolences for affected families and told locals to exercise caution in these areas that have been affected by snow and floods. And those locals who have been affected have been offered some temporary shelter in community halls.
Tom Canetti there for us. Now, Zimbabwe is taking steps to try and create more local cash and benefit from its own national resources. It said that it will ban exports of lithium concentrates from 2027. Now, the hope is that will force mining companies to start processing and refining the mineral in the country, with the knock-on effect of creating more jobs and infrastructure for Zimbabweans. Now, the country has the continent's largest lithium reserves and already banned the export of lithium ore 3 years ago. Ore is the raw form of lithium, whilst concentrate is a slightly more processed, purer product. But some who are pushing the government to go even further in diversifying its economy and quickly say that waiting until 2027 is too long of a delay. Now, African startups, communities, governments, you name it, there is across-the-board worry that on top of tariffs and slashes to aid and other contributions, a proposed tax on remittances tucked away in US President Trump's big, beautiful bill could further snarl up Africa's financial flows. It's eyeing up a 3.5% federal tax on money sent abroad by non-Americans. The World Bank reckons that last year alone, remittances into the continent accounted for over $92 billion. They play a vital role for many of its economies, and if remittances fall off, the fallout could be catastrophic. Our West African correspondent, Caitlin Kelly, brings us more.
Adding to billions in aid cuts and unfavourable tariffs, the latest US policy proposal, the One Big Beautiful Bill, is set to impact millions in Africa. One particular clause in the spending bill could see the loss of billions of dollars sent from the US to families on the continent. as the proposal includes a 3.5% tax on remittances for non-US citizens sending money abroad. Here in West Africa, remittances are a lifeline. They fund things like education, housing and healthcare. Gambia is one of the countries that are set to lose out the most, given the fact that the remittances make up a fourth of the small country's economy, the highest proportion on the continent.
So when this happens, the fintechs in the local economy will suffer because they are big earners of currency coming into the country. Equally, families will suffer. So there'll be a social hit on families as per their welfare and sustenance.
I think it's going to affect because what's going to happen is like, for instance, if I send maybe $20, what I gain out of it's going to be less than what that's it. So that's going to affect my budget and then, what people out there to know. But usually, we send money to the family.
This all comes amid aid cuts as well as travel restrictions, a combination of policies that activists say unfairly target citizens from countries in the global south, as this legislation could become law as soon as next month.
Well, the world's most popular TikTok star, Khaby Lame's left detention by US immigration agents after having been held on Friday. The 25-year-old Senegalese-Italian comedian was held at Harry Reid International Airport, allegedly for overstaying his visa after having originally arrived in the US at the end of April. He was allowed to leave voluntarily, which means that he won't have a deportation order on his record, which could prevent him back into the US. In January, he was appointed a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. Kinshasa's best-known theatre is putting on a series of plays exploring the theme of love. Local actors with a range of experience treading the boards are performing classical works, including the familiar Romeo and Juliet. Take a look.
On this stage in Kinshasa, actors are performing one of the world's best-known plays, Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Many of the dozen young Congolese actors here say they've enjoyed getting to grips with Romeo and Juliet. The thespians, some of whom are new to the stage, had previously only a passing familiarity with Shakespeare's tale of star-crossed lovers.
I'd never read the play before, so it was my first time discovering this beautiful classic piece, and I liked it.
The tragedy, written by the English bard in the 16th century, is living up to its reputation of having enduring worldwide appeal. Here, in the Tarmac des Auteurs, the producers are staging the classic with a Congolese twist. The set is sparse. The audience almost forgets that the tale was written hundreds of years ago in a faraway country. The eternal themes of love and conflict still resonate.
It's very topical because we forget love and choose conflict. That's what Romeo and Juliet tells us, that love was condemned because of a conflict. So why can't we ourselves choose peace from the start?
Altogether, the Tarmac des Auteurs producers are putting on 3 plays, one by Shakespeare, one by French playwright Joël Pomera, and a work by the contemporary Congolese writer Sinzo Anza.
The idea is to see what makes each story special, what makes it unique. That's what's at stake.
The actors will perform until the 11th of June as part of a theatre festival in the Congolese capital.
Oh, how lovely. Well, Senegal is still basking in the glow of becoming the first African team to beat England after its 3-1 victory at a friendly on Tuesday. Now, the Lions of Teranga stretched an unbeaten streak to 24 games, and as the English team licks its wounds from the mauling, I'm now going to be looking more closely at the significance of that win by Senegalese sports analyst Lamine Sevan. Lamine, thanks so much for making the time to speak to me. Now, you most probably, quite rightly, made a lot of fun of me when I asked just how much of a big deal, if any, this meant to Senegalese fans. So please talk us through how have fans been welcoming this win over England?
Well, hello, Georgia. Listen, this was big. This was big, especially, being not only the first African team to do it, but to do it in England. And it just so happens that as far as Senegalese are concerned, we've taken down France, we've taken down Brazil, now we've taken down England. So the Lions of Teranga are the real deal. So extremely excited. Everyone was really overjoyed and overwhelmed with the result and how the team played. It's important to remind that there's a relatively new coach. There's a bunch of new players that came into the team, and they really rose up to the challenge by taking England down. And 3-1 is not a small score.
No, they did pretty well. 3-1 is not something to be sniffed at. And what about the game itself? It was a friendly, but did it? How did you feel watching the play itself? Did they do Senegalese fans proud?
Listen, I happened to be in Qatar at the World Cup, where obviously England got the best of us. So we were eagerly awaiting for an opportunity to correct that, and that's exactly what happened. And I think, watching the game, obviously England was the first to score. So we expected the team to get tight because it seemed like it was a remake of what happened in Doha in Qatar. But all of a sudden, we could sense that the team wasn't backing down. On the contrary, kept going up and attacking and looking for that opportunity. And the number of shots, if you look at the statistics, the number of shots that Senegal took versus England told the tale of the tape. Because at the end of the day, we kept just attacking, believing in ourselves, and we were able to find the back of the net 3 times.
Well, when it comes to that self-belief, from outside of the continent, there's been a lot of bemoaning of the loss from England's perspective. But from within, Senegal's been doing pretty well for quite a while now. What do you think, actually, more generally, all of this says about the continent's wider sporting landscape and the kind of attention and understanding of what's happening in terms of skill levels within African sport from the outside?
Listen, first of all, it happened to be yesterday a historic day because the Embassy of England organized an event called Harito Day. Harit means friendship. So basically friendship day around the game. They invited, a lot of Senegalese at a public event to come and watch the game. So it was fitting that, we managed to win that game. But to answer your question, there used to be a huge gap between African football and the rest of the world, to be quite honest. And we used to have here and there some legends of the game who took Africa flag, Senegal, and many other countries at the highest level. But it seems like things have changed because there's so many more Africans and Senegalese particularly playing at the highest level of football all over Europe and in the Premier League specifically. It just so happened that the goal, one of the goals yesterday, between the second pass and the goal, all 3 players happen to be playing currently in the Premier League. And that is a huge testament to how the gap has been really closed in terms of the level of football played on the continent, in terms of the level of talent coming out of the continent and going at the highest level. And this is something that, we can only be very proud of because at the end of the day, we are competitors and everybody is dreaming of the day where African team will win the World Cup.
Thank you.
Surely Senegal is showing that it's in a good place to be the first one.
Thank you so much. And congratulations to Senegal and all African football fans for that pretty telling win yesterday over England. That, though, unfortunately, is all that we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.